An exclusive story by GB News' own Keith Bayes has revealed a startling projection about the UK's population. And let me tell you, it's time we had an honest conversation about what this means for Britain. Hello, I'm Ben Leo, and this is GBN Originals. Now, the Centre for Migration Control has conducted a comprehensive study, and the findings are nothing short of alarming. By 2035, just over a decade from now, the UK's population, get this, is set to explode to over 73 million. Can you imagine? But that's not the most shocking part. Nearly a quarter of that population, that's right, almost 25%, will be first-generation migrants. Well, let's break down these numbers for a moment, shall we? We're talking about 18.3 million first-generation migrants in the UK by 2035, just 10 years' time. That's roughly 24% of our total population. Now, I want you to pause for a second, stop, and really think about what this means for our country, our culture even, and our very way of life. Robert Bates, the research director of the CMC, didn't mince his words when he spoke about the implications of this surge. He said, and I quote, "The strain being placed on our public services by mass migration is extraordinary." And let me tell you, he's absolutely right as well. How can our NHS, our schools, our housing markets possibly cope with this massive influx? Because it's not just about numbers either. Bates went on to say, "We must recognise that the social and cultural costs for Britain are just as great too. This analysis shows that Britain in 2035 will be a very divided place." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the crux of the matter. We're not just talking about statistics here, we're talking about the very fabric of our society. Now, I know some of you might be sitting there watching this and thinking, yeah, but Ben, surely this is just an exaggeration. Our government wouldn't let this happen. Yeah, right. Well, let me tell you something. The report also revealed that central forecasts often understate the levels of immigration into Britain. But in 2022, for example, the estimated level of net migration was initially 606,000. Yeah, just the 600k. Do you know what it was later revised to? 872,000. And in 2023, the initial estimate of 740,000 was later changed to a staggering, and we all know it by now, 906,000. This isn't just a numbers game. This is about the future of our country, our children's future, your grandchildren's future, and the Britain we want to leave for generations to come. Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cybercriminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today. Well, let's hear what some of our politicians have had to say about this, shall we? Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp didn't hold back. He said, "It would be completely unacceptable to have a quarter of the population as first-generation immigrants. The threat to social cohesion and the strain on public services would be far too much." Well, as a Tory, I'm glad he's just realised that now after 14 years in power, although he is absolutely right. We need urgent action and not just more empty promises. Philp went on to call for a hard binding cap on annual immigration at far lower levels than we've seen recently. But is that enough? Is it too little, too late? Former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster chimed in as well, saying these stats are a reminder that we need to break our economic dependency on importing cheap labour and skills from abroad as an alternative to getting our own workers trained. And there's the rub, isn't it? We've become so reliant on foreign labour that we've neglected our very own workforce, our own people. But it's not just about the economy either. It's about our culture, our language, our very identity as a nation. Just days ago, it was revealed that almost 1 million people in this country struggle to speak English or can't speak it at all. Let that sink in for a moment. In our country, Great Britain, nearly 1 million people can't communicate in our own language. The UK Statistics Authority shows that 8.6%, or just under 800,000 people, can't speak English well, and 1.4%, 137,000 people, can't speak it at all. So how can we possibly hope to integrate such vast numbers when we're already struggling with language barriers? And here's the kicker. Our local authorities, NHS trusts, government departments, they spent over £750 million on translation services between 2021 and 2023. That's taxpayers' money, your money, my money, being spent on translating English into 100 different languages. Is this really the Britain we want? And now, I know this is a very sensitive topic. I know there are those who will accuse us of scaremongering or even racism for daring to discuss these issues. But let me be very clear. This isn't about race. This isn't about xenophobia. This is about the future of our great country, about preserving our way of life, and about ensuring that Britain remains Britain and British. We're not saying immigration is inherently bad. We're saying that uncontrolled mass immigration at this scale is unsustainable. It's putting an enormous strain on our public services, our housing, our schools, our NHS. It's changing the very character of our communities and sometimes, unfortunately, overnight. And let's not forget, this isn't just about the impact on British-born citizens, it's about the migrants themselves. How can we possibly hope to provide adequate support, housing and integration services for such vast numbers of people? To be honest, we're setting ourselves up for a social catastrophe. This isn't just about pulling up the drawbridge. It's about having a sensible, controlled immigration policy that allows us to welcome those who can contribute to our society, while also ensuring we can provide for those already here too. We need to invest training in our own workforce, in our own young people, rather than relying on importing skills from abroad. We need to ensure that those who come to our country are able and willing to integrate, to learn our language, and to respect our values and our way of life. And most importantly, we need our government to be honest with us. No more understated forecasts. No more revised figures and cooking the books after the fact has happened. We deserve to know the truth about what's happening in our country. This week, we spoke about it here at GB News. Take a listen. The big story of the morning is this report from the Centre for Migration Control, which has found that the population in Britain will surge to over 73 million people by 2035, just 10 years, with almost a quarter being first-generation migrants.
Well, I mean, I'm a first-generation migrant. We contacted the government, but heard nothing back yet.
What will Britain look like in just 10 years? Former Immigration Minister Kevin Foster joins us now. Good morning, Kevin. Is this at your door, this situation? I mean, is it even a situation to be concerned or worthy of debate? I mean, what's your take?
Well, it's certainly something we should debate. We should always be thinking about what's the future of our country. And, what would it mean to have a quarter of people in the UK as people who came to the UK themselves? We're not talking about people whose parents or grandparents perhaps came as part, for example, the Windrush generation, but people who have migrated to the UK themselves. And also, we've seen the other part of the report was how many people don't speak any English, and particularly relevant with some of the other issues we're talking about today, is that many communities stop women and girls from learning English, partly to ensure then the men in the household are dominant over them. They can't discover what their legal rights are, go and get a job, engage with their bank and think about their own money, those sorts of things. So there's plenty of debates there around this. And also, we do need to have a debate about our economy having been reliant a lot of times on importing labour from abroad, particularly for skilled work, when if we're going to prevent this sort of thing in 10 years' time, we need to now be talking about, well, what's our skills policy? What's our training policy? And ensuring there isn't just the narrative I sometimes faced from a lot of the media, no, not from GB News, where every time there was a skills shortage, apparently that was because there wasn't a generous enough visa to fill it. Well, we need to be debating, do we have a skills policy able to fill it? And are we ensuring our own workforce, particularly those who could be working but are currently on benefits, are actually able to take up some of those roles?
Well, don't you think this is kind of our own fault? And also, it's more to do with assimilation. So when my parents came to this country, not by the Windrush, by the way, of their own accord, they had to have a set criteria to come here, certain amount of money and certain skills to help to fill. I don't think there was a shortage gap, but they got that old-fashioned thing called a visa. Do you remember those?
The Britain of 2035 is being shaped right now in front of our noses by the decisions we make today. What kind of Britain do you want to see in the future? A cohesive society with shared culture and values, or a divided nation struggling under the weight of uncontrolled mass immigration? Because at the moment, it feels like that's where we are. The time for action is now. It's time for action. It's time for honesty. And it's time for an immigration policy that, dare I say it, puts Britain first. Thank you for watching. This has been Ben Leo. Don't forget to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel for more.